is always going to be a wonder why tropical cyclones form more in Bay of Bengal rather than in Arabian Sea. Now, being in tropical waters, both the Bay of Bengal and the Arabian Sea experience tropical cyclones. However, the Bay of Bengal sees approximately 5 times as many cyclones as in Arabian Sea. Moreover, cyclones in Bay of Bengal are stronger and deadlier, and what's more, nearly 50% of the cyclones formed in the Bay of Bengal reach the coast as compared to only 25% of those formed in the Arabian Sea. So what exactly is a tropical cyclone? Why exactly does it happen? Tropical cyclones are essentially a warm core vortex of tropical origin with a small diameter, circular shape, minimum surface pressure accompanied by high velocity winds spiraling inwards from all directions. A tropical cyclone is a result of some trigger mechanism like a series of thunderstorm waves in presence of suitable warm waters. The water has to be warm, which provide a source of a sensible and latent heat, which is again aided by Coriolis force, and minimum vertical variation in wind speed. That means from below to the top, the winds don't go on to vary. It's not that the winds go on to be slower at the lower side and then very fast at the top side. That is a minimum vertical variation in wind speed inside this spiral, and of course a very high humidity level. All these are present in a Bay of Bengal. Since sea surface temperatures and humidity both directly correlate with the chances of cyclone formation, the Bay of Bengal is likely to get a greater amount of rainfall. And because the low winds around keep the temperature relatively high, about 29 degrees around the year, warm air currents and hence this surface temperature and air evaporation, adding latent heat in the atmosphere in the formation of the cyclones. Moreover, Bay of Bengal also receives high rainfall and constant inflow of fresh water from the Ganga and the Brahmaputra rivers. This means that the bay's surface waters keeps getting refreshed. This fresh water is of low density on the upper layer, and this upper layer low density makes it difficult for the upper warm air to mix with the cooler denser water from below. This means that the warm surface water will keep supplying in excess energy through evaporation for the cyclones to sustain. It's like in all of a good amount. Now this goes on to make the entire surface temperature, that is its density goes on to become low. That is a low density form. The water is fresh, the density is low. Now when the density is going to be low, then water doesn't going to come from deep below, and this water doesn't going to come, that means there isn't going to move up. That's called as upwelling. So if cool water, denser water doesn't going to come onto the surface, then the surface is going to be made only of warm waters. Now if this is warm, then that will going to lead to greater, that greater evaporation will going to lead to a greater supply of heat to the atmosphere. It is this heat that is responsible for sustaining the whole of the cyclone. Now these conditions are much more easily developed in the whole of this region, Bay of Bengal, BOB, what we go on to call it. On the other hand, the Arabian Sea water is a bit cooler, helped by Somali current from this region. This region goes on to get supplied by the cool from the Somali. So there is an addition of cool water from Somali as well as from below. This is largely because the winds in this region are going to happen to be faster in this place. Consequently, a good amount of water is going to be blown away from the surface. If this water is going to be blown away from the surface, then it allows cooler and denser water to come onto the surface. If cooler and denser water comes onto the surface, then that stops evaporation. When this evaporation goes on to get stopped, then does not go on to add to the heat of the atmosphere. Moreover, so a lack of constant fresh water supply, unlike the Bay of Bengal. This is largely because, as you can go to find it, Arabian region, this is Arabian Peninsula, Africa, the entire region is going to be desert, and there are not too many rivers that can go to supply the whole of Arabian Sea with fresh water. So it is unlike Bay of Bengal. Now, when there is no supply of fresh water, it is this fresh water that would have formed a layer of warm water, that would have formed a layer of a somewhat less denser water. So there is a lack of constant fresh water supply in like Bay of Bengal, which helps the warm water mix with the cool denser water from below and reducing the temperature, thus reducing evaporation and supply of latent heat, which is the source of cyclone in this case. That means, had it been that there would have been an addition of a good amount of fresh water in this case, then what would have happened? That is, the water from below, the cooler water from below wouldn't have come on to replace the less denser water. And what is happening right now is, in this case, that is cooler water from below, denser water from below is able to come onto the surface, because the surface does not go on to be having a low density water in this place. Now, what it goes on to do is that it reduces evaporation, because the water is going to be somewhat of a lower temperature, that reduces evaporation, that reduces the supply of latent heat, and which is the main source of energy for the cyclones. Bay of Bengal also receives cyclones from Pacific. Some of these Pacific cyclones which go on to originate in that region, the remnants go on to find their way into Bay of Bengal. Thus, not cyclones, all cyclones are formed in Bay of Bengal. Bay of Bengal is host to cyclones that are formed elsewhere, but move towards the water body, specifically from the Pacific Ocean. That means there are going to be good amount of remnants from this region that find their way into Indian Ocean. Tropical cyclones usually weaken if they encounter large landmass. That is, if there is a cyclone that goes on to form in this place and it goes on to move over land, that has a chance of getting itself weakened. So they generally go on to get themselves weakened if it happens that they are passing over the land. Now, there is hardly any amount of a land body here. So due to the lack of any substantial presence between the Pacific and the Bay, the cyclonic winds from Pacific easily move into the Bay of Bengal region, and they go on to easily move in this place. And when they go on to easily move in this place, then that goes on to form a triggering force for such type of a cyclone in this region. It is this triggering force that goes on to become significant, because it's this trigger mechanism that is responsible for the development of the cyclones. Since high water and air temperatures are crucial for the formation and intensification of cyclones, they are most commonly reported or expected in summer, because it is in summer that the water temperature is high, the air temperature is high. However, the Bay witnesses cyclones both in the pre-monsoon and the post-monsoon times. The post-monsoon, that means after the monsoons, so post-monsoon period sees a higher number of cyclones than the pre-monsoon period. This is because the summers and pre-monsoons see dry and hot air moving from northwestern India towards the. That means we are witnessing the movement of such type of winds from India, in this case, now, so which go on to originate from the Indian region. So the post-monsoon period sees a higher number of cyclones. So this is largely because summers and pre-monsoon see dry and hot air moving from northwestern India towards the Bay of Bengal. Now, as it goes on to move over this region, this blocks the air to rise. These winds, as they are going to be moving over this region, this blocks the air to rise. Now, as it is that this air is blocked to rise, the air doesn't go on to rise, consequently evaporation goes to get suppressed. As evaporation goes on to get suppressed, the formation of clouds also go on to get suppressed. And because the formation of the clouds go on to get suppressed, it also goes on to prevent cyclone friendly conditions. But not only the absence of this air movement, but there is another factor. There is another factor that is responsible for the formation of such type of tropical cyclones during the period of post-monsoon. And that is because the whole of the season goes on to have an extension of what we are going to be calling it as in this region. The whole of this region extends MLP, monsoon low pressure trough. That's MLPT. It's called by the name of monsoon low pressure trough. It is this monsoon low pressure trough that is largely responsible for getting itself dipping into this region. It dips into this place. It keeps on moving in such a manner and it dips. And that is a low pressure system. This is where you go to low pressure system. And MLPT, that is monsoon low. It intensifies the formation of cyclones in this case. Now, all of these forces make the Bay of Bengal one of the most sensitive areas in the world when it comes to cyclones. It also explains why people in the coastal states along the bay live in perpetual risk of this weather phenomena, which becomes destructive because of their own folly.
To have more such discussions and analysis, subscribe to our channel and hit the bell icon for notifications on our upcoming videos.